Hello and welcome, friends. On the behalf of Usanas Foundation, I would like to welcome all of you to this segment of Usanas Dialogues. And we are back after a while, but we have a very interesting discussion today that's on the issue of Kurdistan, and we have an amazing expert sitting with us today, Miss Nilüfer Koç. I'll just briefly read out her bio and then we can start with the interview. Ms. Koch is a member of the Executive Council and the spokesperson of the Commission on Foreign Relations of the Kurdistan National Congress, KNK. She previously served as the co-chair of the KNK. Her primary political focus is the improvement of the national dialogue among the political parties and civil society organizations from Kurdistan. From 2013 to 2018, she worked as KNK representative in the South Kurdistan region of Iraq and in Rojava, northeastern Syria. She is engaged in the active and autonomous participation of women in all fields of society and politics. So a very, very warm welcome to you, Mrs. Koch. And we are really honored and we are really proud to have you with us today. You have done really some amazing work in this arena, and definitely we're looking forward to a very interesting session, because on this particular issue, there is not much awareness in the Indian academic circles and also the Indian analysts working on security issues. So definitely we would like to know a lot more details with a lot of nuances from you. So I think I'll begin straight away with the questions and answers. Just a moment. So my first question to you in this regarding is that is Erdogan's approach to the Kurdish peace process driven more by politics or by the genuine desire for peace?
I'm very pleased to be with you today, and thank you to the Usanas Foundation to organize this event. I do believe we'll talk about a very important solution to a whole region, the Kurdish solution. Starting responding to your first question, I do believe that well, it's true. When I follow up the steps taken by Erdogan, I would see his desire is actually really not to find a peaceful future for Turkey. Instead, it's more politically motivated position which is presenting currently. And I would say that his primary approach is to maintain his power. He wants to continue for 5 more years as a president of Turkey. But I think it would be easy this time, because he already lost 2 main elections, because the Kurds are rejected to vote for him after the Kurds haven't been satisfied with the politics he was running in the 22 years of his rule. But I think also domestically in Turkey, he wouldn't get much votes like he did in the past, because he was running the state in a kind of collapsing economically, and I would say also militarily. So he's supposed to make some gains in the turmoil of the Middle Eastern region, particularly after the Arab Spring, by expanding Turkish interest in the region of Middle East. And his primary focus was expansionism through the occupation of the Kurdish lands in Iraq and Syria. And because of the Kurdish resistance, he wasn't able to do that. So that's why he also couldn't keep his promise he gave to the state that he will increase Turkey's interest in the Middle Eastern chaos. So, and what can happen to him if he would lost his position here as a president? I won't think about that, because we know from Turkish history that all those who couldn't keep their promises to the state have been withdrawn in different forms, and that's known by Erdogan. And I think the other thing what he lost, and I think this is a good thing for all of us, he came to power by creating kind of moderate Islam. He used Islam as a political tool, let's say, being the ruler of the whole Islamic world. That's the role he was playing in the last 22 years, promising his partners, the NATO, the US, and others, that he will prevent the radical form of Islam by improving the moderate Islam, which is the Sunni Islam, he was saying. And I think the collapse of these tools started in 2014 when he was backing the jihadists against us in Syria and Iraq. We have been defeating them militarily. And I think the second collapse of this tool came after the 7th of October, when he was supporting the Hamas, and now Hamas lost the war. So I would say his strategic tool, the jihad, supporting jihadism, also collapsed. The strategy collapsed also. And I think that's the reason why he became part of the new process, let's say the process between the Kurdish People's Leader Abdullah Öcalan, the Kurdish movement, and Erdogan. So I don't think he is convinced in peace. I do believe he don't have much more other options now. That's the reason driven him to be a partner in the talks.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cook. From your statement and your remarks, what I understand is that this is more of something which is driven out of very pragmatic considerations, or rather compulsations, of Erdogan personally and also at the national front. So now here I have like two questions, related questions, in fact, I must say. Because Erdogan, in his official statements and I would say in his political projection, is coming out as a very aggressive person, or he's showing Turkey as a very aggressive state, and they are threatening Israel in South Asia also. They are actively supporting Pakistan against India, and on Kashmir issue. Besides that, their hands in glove with the radical jihadists and Islamists. However, as you rightly mentioned, that economically and militarily they are declining. So this aggressive posture is not commensurate with the material facts. So is it because of his weakening position politically, he is trying to rally the supporters of jihadists, or I must say getting Turkey more and more embroiled in the Middle Eastern conflicts to bolster his own personal position?
Allow me to start with the time when Erdogan came to power. It was 2002. I remember the date very clearly. I remember the political shift at that time. So he got the full support from the European Union, from the US. So with the promise, he will be the one who will create alternatives against radical form of Shia Islam, means against Iran. So that was the promise when he took over, the promise he gave to the Western countries, the allies, the natural allies of Turkey, which is mainly the US and also Israel. But then after 2010, after the Arab Spring, the region of Middle East became in a new form of chaos. And Erdogan said, well, I have to be careful. I can't continue with the promise. I can't keep the promise. Instead, there was a shift in Turkish strategy. The state strategy forced Erdogan to make use of any small opportunities in the chaos of the region of Middle East. So the one was taking over the radical jihadist movements in accountability for Turkish interests is the beginning where there's a radical shift in the taking a new tool, the tool of Islamism. By doing this way, he then get more and more in conflict with his partners, particularly the NATO. You know that Turkey is since 1952 the strategic ally of the NATO, playing got a role, was a pillar of the NATO for the region, and then it was more and more Turkey was distancing itself from their from the partners, which beginning to create the problems with the US, the Israel, etc. And this problem increased in 2014 when he backed the jihadists to occupy Kurdish land in Syria and Iraq through al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, Daesh, IS, etc. So this policy couldn't get the approach the Turkish state ordered Erdogan to do. So this is the beginning, actually, with his the end of his rule. Actually, I think he is now moving to the end of his rule. He was not able to do that, and then also the Turkish policy, particularly Erdogan's policy regarding Pakistan, is a part of the Turkish dream to become a regional power. For that, Turkey planned to get much more nuclear energy, and that the only way to be supported in nuclear weapons have been, or they thought it can happen to Pakistan because of the former Ottoman-Pakistan relation, and then it's achieved its peak during Erdogan's time. The relation between Pakistan and Turkey is not just a way of being Muslim brothers, but also, as you know, Pakistan has a huge power of nuclear armament, and Turkey wants to learn, and there are a lot of exchanges between Pakistan and Turkey in this regard. And doing this as Islamic brother, I think, is covering the truth behind the business Erdogan is doing with Pakistan. And of course, helping Pakistan with some Islamic movements is one of part of the deal behind the scene. But I think in the end, he can't continue with that, because I think the best thing what we as the Kurds did, we break the tool of jihadism when we defeated IS. So that was, I think, the beginning of his the collapse of his rule, 22 years of rule. And now I do believe that also investing all the state budget in the war in the last 22 years, it led to domestic crisis in Turkey. As you know, they can't even control the value of the Turkish lira. And also many of the foreign investments said Turkey is not secure for international business. Many of the companies, international companies, left Turkey. And also, let's say, threatening other, except the Kurds, Turkey became a state threatened all, and playing double game everywhere in the last times to to realize or to implement the dream becoming the new Ottoman Empire and the chaos of the region. But I think what they haven't accounted was that there have been more powerful forces in the region, particularly after 7th of October. There is a radical shift in the balances. So Erdogan was not able to position Turkey as the primary regional power of Middle East. So in this, Turkey was not able to achieve their goal. And then the second deepening of the collapsing process was started after 7th of October with the Israel-Hamas war, where Turkey supported Hamas. And now recently, Turkey sold also out Hamas in the meeting of in Cairo, the Peace Summit for Palestine, which was done on the 26th of October in Cairo, in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh. So now Turkey is in a position, actually they are now looking where to position Turkey in Middle East. So the dream of Ottoman Empire gone. So now is the turn, Erdogan is now playing the role to repositioning Turkey in this turmoil. And the other important thing for us as Kurds, which we consider very seriously, is that Israel's power is replacing Turkey in Middle East now. So this is a challenge for Turkey also. That's why there's some conflicts between Israel and Turkey currently, particularly through this about the negotiation process in Syria. And both parties are kind of competition, because for Israel's security, there's a need to have secure borders with Syria, which includes the Golan Heights, etc. And Turkey, as well, they still believe that Syria belongs to Turkey because it was a part of former Ottoman Empire. But the most fear of Turkey is that the Kurds can make some gains, that in the new Syrian constitution, a new Syrian parliamentary system, the whole new Syrian state can offer Kurds space to be recognized as Kurds, like it happens in northern Iraq. This is the main fear of Turkey. And I think the reason why Erdogan is saying that the Kurds are their brothers now is playing or delaying for the Kurds time to make also use from the challenges and changes in the region. So now when you listen to Erdogan, suddenly we became his brothers. I'm very happy, don't say sisters. So he's playing now with the friendly card towards the Kurds to prevent the Kurds to become part of Syria's Kurds, and secondly, to prevent that the Kurds can initiate other diplomatic relations with the global players in the region, including Israel. That's the main fear now, why Erdogan is now changing some of his attitudes towards the Kurds, saying, I love the Kurds. We are since thousands of years brothers and sisters, and we have a lot of common value, etc., etc. This is the position now of Erdogan.
Thank you. Very insightful remarks. Okay. Can you tell us a bit more about the new Turkish law allowing the PKK fighters to return? And another related aspect of this is that Erdogan is trying to push about 1,000 PKK fighters to Europe. So is that going to be generating some tricky situation in terms of peace, or is that going to destabilize these talks? How is it going to play out?
You know, I wouldn't focus most of the problems of Turkey on the person of Erdogan. He was given a role and he wasn't able to play the role. And I'm not sure if he is right man to keep Turkish interest as a nation state in the turmoil of the region. So the whole region is in turmoil and chaos. So there are other powers more powerful than Turkey, like the US, Israel, Saudi Arabia, who are playing also important role in the region now. I think they have been taking the control now over the region. And the problem is now where to positioning Turkey in this new frame, the new design. This is the challenge of the Turkish nation state. It's not just focused on Erdogan, it's about the existence of the 103 years of Turkish Republic. So Turkey was founded against the Soviet Union, was supported as such, and then after the collapse, Turkey tried to find its way and then chosen for Islamic card, but then the Islamic card was defeated by the Kurds. And the other point is Erdogan was a continuation of denial of the Kurdish existence. In the last 10 years, we have been facing a very brutal war, but not just in the Turkish part of Kurdistan, also in northern Syria, northern Iraq, in the Kurdish settled areas. So in the 10 years, we have been resisting for our survive, and we survived. So we say now, Erdogan, even you and your state couldn't deny the Kurds. We are now here, and we need now a name for the Kurdish people. Whatever you change the constitution, say Turkey is a multi-ethnic democratic state, or you say Turkey is a common state of the Kurds and Turks because we have been helping the Turks in the First World War to establish this republic together. So this is the second option. But we prefer, of course, that Turkey will transit to democracy, say, well, Turkey is multi-ethnic. We have also Kurds in Turkey. This is now the stage we achieved after 10 years resistance from 2015 until last year, October. So now we say, okay, you say the Kurds exist, you say the Kurds are our brothers. Okay, what to do with the Kurds now? How to recognize the Kurds in the new Turkey? Because with old Turkey, they can't continue. The balances which was benefiting Turkey in the last century gone. There are new balances. So, and then secondly, the Kurds changed radically. So they are visible, and Kurds have been in good partnership in the last 13 years with the US in Syria. Kurds are now in dialogue with Arab states. And Kurds are, because they are visible, they are now a key player in the region. So then how to consider them, how to recognize them. And Erdogan is now saying, well, we except to say we are brothers and sisters, there's nothing. This kind of speeches saying, well, we will bring the fighters to, some say, to Norway, and we always make the joke, well, Norway is too cold. We don't like Norway, it's too cold, so we prefer other places because we are people who love the sun. So, and in Norway is little sun. We can't survive in this area, so why shouldn't we go to somewhere else? We are living in this land since thousands of years. Why should we leave our country? And why the people went to the mountains is because the denial, it's because of the genocide Turkey was committing against the Kurdish people. So the Kurds have to get the right of participating in politics. That's what we are demanding. It's not sending the people to Norway or to Iceland. I don't know, wherever they play. The Kurdish demand is clear. You change the law, the criminal law. You withdraw the law of anti-terrorism so that all the fighters who are now ready to give up the arms come to the cities, villages where they came from and participate in politics, in creating the new democratic Turkey. It's not the issue sending thousands of fighters somewhere. And I think the request of the Kurds is very rational because Öcalan and the Kurdish movement made it very easy for Erdogan and the Turkish state. When I compare the current Kurdish process with the Ireland, with the South African, Colombian, or Philippine negotiation processes, I think the Kurdish movement, compared with others, has made it very, very easy for Turkey. They dissolved the movement, the PKK. They have been deciding to ending the strategy of armed resistance because they say, well, in the 21st century, for the Kurds, there's no need to continue with armed resistance. The Kurds have come back to their roots. They are proudly Kurds. They have now enough self-confidence. They do know politics. They do know diplomacy. When Kurds have everywhere relations with the governments in the region and everywhere. So we are visible. So we don't need any more armed resistance. We can survive also by political struggling. But for that, people need the frame of political participation. And this is now the current stance. We say we don't go to anywhere. We stay in our land, Kurdistan, in the Turkish part of Kurdistan. It can become a kind of autonomy where we can run our municipalities and where we can have our people's councils. And all this can happen without changing the borders inside of Turkey. So this is our offer to Turkey. It's now on their turn, whether they will change all the law legal changes. So it's now their turn. We have done everything from Kurdish side. So we burned arms in a ceremony. I was also part of this organizing team in July in Iraqi Kurdistan. And I've seen that 30 of the fighters have been burning their arms, saying, listen, we are convinced that we can achieve, through the strategy win-win, achieve a democratic Turkey. It's for benefit for all of us, not just the Kurds. And then the withdrawal of the forces of the PKK, the Kurdish movement from Turkey on the 23rd of October. More than that, the Kurdish side can't offer. That's all what have been offered now to Turkey. So there's just a need of being honest from Turkish side, saying, listen, the Kurds have done 5 concrete steps. What Turkey did was just one single step, the commission in the parliament. So, and then the Kurds made it very easy to Turkey say, well, you can send the delegation of this commission, the so-called Commission of Solidarity, Brotherhood, National Unity, Democracy, which was created in the Turkish parliament in August. And the Kurdish side is now saying, well, send this commission to the Kurdish people's leader, Abdullah Öcalan, because he's the chief negotiator of the Kurdish side. And you have to listen to him. He was the one take the high risks for the Kurdish side. So we are now currently on this stage, and I honestly don't know what Erdogan's reply will be in the next days.
You are on mute.
Thanks a lot, Nilüfer. I was in fact about to ask you a question on the exact demands of the Kurds from the government, but you mentioned that you mentioned about the autonomy and the demands to on the local municipal councils, and also that gives a fairly decent idea of the Kurds' main demands within the Turkish constitution and without changing the borders. Okay. So now my next question is about, how do Kurds look at the democratic integration with Turkey? Do you think what will be the impact of this integration on the social cohesion and the public perceptions in the Turkish society?
Democratizing Turkey would be for benefit of all, not just us. So because now Turkey is aggressive state, Turkey still has power on jihadism, and Turkey is, let's say this, the tradition of the nation state of Turkey is based on pan-Turkism and pan-Islamism. So these both ideological characters of the state made it very difficult for the survival of other non-Turks others than non-Turks. And if we can, for example, convince the state, and I think we are in the right direction as the Kurds, because we say Turkey has done everything to eliminate the 25 million Kurds in Turkey. Turkey have done everything to eliminate 6 million Kurds in northern Iraq and 3 million Kurds in North Syria. But after 50 years of struggle with the Turkish regime, and in the last 22 years with the Erdogan regime, the end point is we survived. So, and when we can convince Turkey for democratic transition means changing Article 66 of the Constitution. This article is the symbol of pan-Turkism. In this article, it says whoever is a citizen of Turkey is a Turk. So means all those who are carrying passport of Turkey are Turks. This is a lie. So because we are non-Turks, we have nothing to do with the Turks. They came from Mongolia, and we are ancient people of the region with a history of thousands of years. So, and there are Armenians, there are Christian minorities, there are Assyrians, there are Arabs. Turkey is a multi-ethnic country. And if you summarize all the ethnic groups, then I would say the Turks are the minority in Turkey. So that's why Article 66 has to be changed. And there are 4 first articles in the Constitution. One of them is saying that except the Turkish language, no language is allowed. So Kurdish is not allowed officially in Turkey. So you can use it in private sphere, but not in the schools. And we don't have the right of education in mother tongue. We are asking for education in mother tongue. Can you imagine? We are the ancient people living in our land thousands of years, and we're not allowed to improve our language. And we are not allowed to improve our customs. We have traditions, and we have different faiths than Islam. We Kurds have 8 different faiths. There are non-Muslim faiths also. The Zoroastrians, the Yazidis, etc. The Alawites, these are non-Muslim Kurds. So, and Turkey is based on Sunni Islam. So this all has to be changed, and that will be, I think, offering all the ethnic and religious groups in Turkey for coming to their roots. And I think the Kurdish side has done the best way to convince the state. And I would say we don't back Turkey for anything, honestly. So it's not that we are in weak position, because we know that we know that many of the agreement in the region failed. The agreement of Sykes-Picot, which the Kurds have been made the victims by British and France in 1916, and then 1923, where they gave the Kurds as a pawn to Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria. Now we overcome these agreements, and there's a new agreement in the region, the Abraham Accord. So the Abraham Accord with the Israeli Saudi Arabia-led a new agreement with the help of the US will bring a new dynamic to the region. So, and in this, Turkey is still a challenging partner. It's a difficult partner. And comparing the Kurds with Turks, I would say the Kurds make it easier. Democratization would be therefore also for benefit of Saudi Arabia, for Israel, for India, for Iran, for Iraq, for Syria, because Turkey is a key state producing militarism and aggression. That's why a democratic transition would be for the benefit of all of us. And that's why I always say, please be on our side. We should do it together because it's not just our benefit. I mean, we will primarily benefit from democratic transition, but I think all the people in the region of Middle East.
Thank you very much. I think that with this growing pan-Turkism and Islamism as the central pillar of Turkish foreign policy, I'm not being pessimistic, but I have serious doubts about the success of Erdogan's intent vis-a-vis the Kurds peace process. So that's one question. And now my next question would be how do you look at the Kurds' position in the other countries of the Middle East? Kurds are not just in Turkey; they are the other parts of the Middle East also, in Syria and all. So are those problems much better placed in terms of solution, or are they also as intractable as the Kurds' problem with the Turkey?
Until the Arab Spring, Turkey has a problem with the Kurds in Turkey mainly. And then, before that, after collapse of Saddam, the Iraqi Kurds became also next to the Turkish Kurds a problem to the Turkish regime, because when the Turkish Republic was founded, the pillar was being anti-Kurdish. Turkey has a very deep-rooted Kurdish phobia. So and then Erdogan was once saying, even if the Kurds would go to the space, I will follow them up. Even when they will do something in Africa, I will prevent them. So I want to make it a little bit understandable, the Turkish hate of Kurds. I call it the Kurdish phobia of Turkey, because they have eliminated the Armenians, the Assyrians. Those who they couldn't eliminate have been the Kurds. So, and then when the Kurds gained after the collapse of Saddam in Iraq, a kind of autonomy, Turkey has done everything to prevent in 2000, from 91 to 2003. And now they're doing the same with Syria, because the Kurds have been smart enough to benefit from the turmoil after the Arab Spring in 2010. They've taken control in 2012 in the Kurdish habited area in northern Syria, and since then they have created kind of de facto autonomy. Our trouble is not with Jolani now, with al-Shara, because al-Shara is now more under control of Turkey. So our problem in Syria is with Turkey, not with Shara. Shara, he don't have any experiences in ruling a state. He came from jihadist background. He don't know how to organize. Can you imagine? None of the bureaucracy in the state of Damascus is functioning now because they don't know. They brought us jihadists, put them on some positions as ministers, etc. They even don't know how to rule. So who is leading them? Who is advising them, or assisting them, giving them recommendation, or pressuring them is Turkey. I will give a concrete example. When we have been able to convince somehow al-Shara in September, so we were close to come in Damascus to sign new agreements, and then what Turkey was doing, forcing fractions of al-Shara's movement, the HTS, and creating a new artificial problem for us in Aleppo, because there are 2 districts inhabited by Kurds in Aleppo, to prevent that we go down to Damascus. This is Turkish game. And then in Iraq, Turkey is a threat to the Iraqi Kurdistan. In Turkey also. In Iran, our position is we are not interested in a war with Iran because we are busy with Turkey. That's enough, more than enough actually. So Turkey is involved in 3 parts of my country. having fire on the fourth part, it will be too much for us. That's why we try to find a kind of dialogue with the Iranian regime. And I hope they will be smart to see that following up Turkish Kurdish phobia wouldn't be helpful for them. And I think the best way is getting in dialogue with the regime in Iran for a democratic transition also in Iran for the Kurds and all other ethnic groups in Iran.
Thank you. So with this, I come to my final question. What do you think can be India's role in this entire Kurdish issue? What do you expect from India?
Well, I have been often in India since 2008 and followed up also together with my colleagues Arif and Hakan. India is now an important player in the Asian area, but I don't see that India is too much involved in Middle East. So, however, India has a consulate in Erbil, in the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan. But in case of the Kurds, I don't know how far India have the foresight or I don't know if the Kurds are visible for India actually. So,
Okay.
and what I wish would be India's support in recognition of the Kurds on the international level. The Palestinians, in the end, has achieved to have an observer status in the UN. And imagine we are 60 million people, and we are divided on the 4 key states of the region, and we don't have a name yet. What we needed is, yes, but we can change this with the help of India. So in the end, whether it's a UN, I don't think Europe will do that because Europe caused our trouble, is the cause of our trouble, created the Kurdish problem, British and France and all other participated. But what can be done is, for example, having India's support in getting the Kurds at least as observers in the United Nations. You know, these 60 million people need a name. And it has to be written somewhere. Someone has to say there are 60 million Kurds as the ancient people of the region. They want democracy without changing the borders. And I think this is acceptable also for India, for all other states the same. And I hope that can be done. I think India's support for our movement in Turkey, let's say the DEM party, the Indian embassy can have more close dialogue with the Kurdish, pro-Kurdish party in the Turkish parliament, which is running actually the process now. Being briefed by them is important. And I think also India's support for the Kurds in Syria can be vital, whatever economically, politically. So there are a lot of ways, but I think through this kind of seminars, debates, we together can raise more and more the importance of the Kurds in the Indian public, and I hope that we can achieve one day also Prime Minister Modi's ears about the Kurds, so that he one day will raise also our issue. And I must say, I hope it can happen.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Koch, for spending your time and enlightening us with the issues pertaining to Kurds in that region. Definitely your comments and your remarks were very insightful and very nuanced. So it will help our audience learn the intricacies of that issue. Well, before I conclude, I must say that democratization of Turkey is very crucial. However, the Middle East is going through a turmoil. It's going through a kind of churn with these, I would say, escalating tensions between Israel and Hamas. It seems that the Abraham Accords have a dire future. Like they don't have a bright future, and the hostilities are increasing between Turkey and Israel also. So, hypothetically speaking, if these things escalate and the problems and the conflict increase, Turkey gets more and more embroiled in that. That is most likely to weaken Turkey in terms of military and economic capabilities. At the same time, if Erdogan finds it difficult to get that another tenure, or he declines politically, it seems that Kurds will have more space to leverage that vacuum and find a better position on the negotiating table in the entire future of the Middle East. Anyways, we are entering into a new world order, and I guess we expect a lot more changes happening in this world, not just theoretical or not just the changes in terms of social movements, but it seems that the cartographic changes are also in the offing. So let's hope for the best and hope for the peace. Thank you very much once again, and thanks. Yeah. Hope to see you again in some of our future events. Thank you.